Art-Centric Podcast with Rafi and Klee.
Hola, you amazing artists. It's Rafi.
And Klee.
And today we're going to talk about productivity.
We're going to make this fun, you guys.
Yeah, we're going to make this fun. We're going to talk about productivity and some of the myths and legends about productivity when it comes to being an artist. Because, I can tell you right now that in my career as a creative, I have used productivity against myself, and I have used productivity for myself, right? And it all really depends on what your mindset is when it comes to being productive. And as far as like scheduling things and all that stuff, Clea and I have run the gamut as far as figuring out schedules.
That's true.
Trying everything. We tried block schedules. We tried basically every fad that's on the internet, every fad that's on YouTube, where like some YouTuber is talking about how this thing changed their life. Clea and I tried, and then tried variations of them.
Including but not limited to block schedules, as Rafi mentioned, batch tasking, designated days, rotating scaffold frameworks. That was not a super concise name. I think we had actually clever names for it. We had code words like Wizard Cape Day.
Yeah.
We have kind of run the gamut, and we've had times where it's just a free-for-all, and we don't know where we are at any given moment, and we're just like spooked and trying to do things.
Yeah.
And for chunking, like Ruby said.
Now, for chunking has been the thing that has always worked. And I think for anybody that's listening, by the way, you guys, if you hear us reading comments, we're hanging out with this podcast with our amazing Rogue Artist family for this podcast. So if you hear us reading some brilliant comments or saying something brilliant, chances are we're reading it from them, because
Indeed.
These are artists from all over the world and they're just amazing.
For chunking and the Fantastic Four list. So we'll talk about a little bit about what's worked for us and what hasn't.
So
worked.
let's get into productivity itself as a mindset type thing, right? Okay. Getting into that thing, because I have a feeling that we got a question from one of our Rogue Artist family on Patreon, and it had to do with being lazy, feeling lazy and not being productive, and what do we do, and whether or not we ever go through.
Yeah, and I think specifically it was, apologies guys, because normally we have the question in front of us. We don't today, but we remember it for the most part. Feeling guilty for the times where you're feeling like extra special levels of laziness.
Yeah.
And does that happen to us? And how do we feel about it? And what do we do about it?
So I want to talk about that first of all, because a lot of times we sit there and tell ourselves that, I'm too lazy, or I procrastinate, or I whatever. And procrastination is the opposite of being productive. And the reality is, to me at least, right, this is strictly my opinion, is that you have to give yourself the rotation of those days in a way. If you're going to give yourself something to do, give it to yourself in a way where no matter what, you are ending the day feeling like you accomplished something, right? Because that's like Shan says here, that I have not been productive as far as lately. Feeling the guilt is making me procrastinate more.
Right.
And that's the thing. I could tell you right now that whenever I felt like my list just kept growing and I would never get to the bottom of my list, it causes you to get to a place where you feel like burning out.
It
Like,
gets overwhelming.
It gets overwhelming. You start looking at this list, and that's the reason that the Fantastic Four list exists, right? It's only 4 things. You basically, if you're gonna do anything that day, you only give yourself 4 things. And in my opinion, you tweak that depending on, what you have going on. If you have a, corporate side hustle, and an artist career, then when it comes to your art career, maybe it's just two things that you're giving yourself.
Does surviving the day count as productive? Yes,
yes,
it does.
yes,
and
it
if
does.
you need to write in your planner, I survived the day and then cross it out, then you did that. I think what you're saying too is like, okay, we're not a one-speed moped here.
No.
We are multi-geared tricycles. I was gonna say tricycles.
Multi-geared tricycles. That's what we are as artists. So for example, lazy. We don't have lazy days. Okay? We don't have days where we feel lazy. We have drag ass days, right? And those are the days that I wake up and say to myself, "You know what? I'm going to be dragging ass today." And so on that day, I still do things, right? Here's the irony of it. Because I announced that this is a drag ass day, I actually am rather productive that day as I drag ass. And that's I think that's the thing. It's all about the mindset. If you tell yourself deliberately, all right, well, I'm going to have a lazy day, that means that maybe the stuff on your list is stuff that's easy to do. Maybe it means that you're going to like really attack just one thing and you're just going to take your time with it. It's like giving yourself the leeway and the permission to have the days. You'll have days where you're feeling really productive and maybe you just write down 4 things and you accomplish, 12. And then you'll have days where you accomplish 3 things on your list, and that's okay. It's all okay.
Yeah, and I think if you resist the urge to slow down, then it really does lead to burnout eventually.
Yes.
And if you here's the thing too. If you shame yourself for being lazy, then you're not reaping the benefits of being lazy. And then you're not maximizing how productive your lazy time can be, because instead of resetting and generating new ideas, you're too busy shaming yourself.
Yep.
So let's maximize our laziness by leaning into it.
Yep.
That way,
Exactly.
and it sounds funny, but I'm speaking from experience, right? When you resist the break time, then you really don't reap the benefits of it.
Yeah. You don't reap the benefits of it, and there are benefits to all of it. Like, and the thing is, like, during those days where I'm kind of dragging ass, I'm like, all right, well, let me fa-chunk this thing. And you guys that haven't heard of what fa-chunking is a term that Clee and I came up with. And basically what it is chunking something in an increment. It could be 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever it is that you decide. You set yourself a timer, you get started on the thing. The whole purpose of fa-chunking is to just get the damn thing started, because for a lot of us, getting anything started is like walking through a wall of molasses. So like you get the thing started, and then if you gave yourself 15 minutes, at the end of the 15 minutes, if you're like, you know what, I'm not feeling it, then you have permission to stop and then try again the next day. And that has worked for me so well. There are rarely days that I'm not feeling it, but it feels nice that I'm able to give myself permission that if I'm not feeling it, that I could walk away from the project. Because if not, then you're just getting overwhelmed, and then you're not even doing it. You're not even trying it for those 15 minutes, because now you've got a mountain of things to do, and it just all gets too overwhelming. And I could tell you right now, when I get overwhelmed, that's when I do nothing. I do nothing.
Yeah, so we actually did the math just for fun, and we realized that doing each of our main things that we do, writing, media, studio time, music, and domestic arts, which is like the household stuff, doing those things in really small increments each day at the end of a year actually adds up to more time spent doing those things, like trying to put long stints in and then burning out.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the issues. Listen, the only time that you put long stints in is when you have a deadline that you're trying to get to, and you're getting it accomplished at the last minute.
Cameron said, have your supplies easy to access, your area clean and stress-free, and do it whenever you have free time or in between other activities, and keep jumping back in if needed. And that's great. So like, even if you're just gonna go into your studio and organize stuff so that it looks how you want it to look, Like, that's progress.
I love that I have days like that. So we have what we have. Let's read some of these comments and then we'll get into wham.
Um, yeah, Shan Chan said, I've not had time to fa-chunk anything at a canvas screen or a piece of paper.
Sometimes the thing that gets put on the shelf just for a break, because if you're guilting yourself or giving yourself pressure to create, right there you're setting yourself up with an obstacle. Right? Because creation, you're going to hear a lot of people, and I agree with them. You're going to hear a lot of people that say, you want to get creative, get in the studio and create. Yes, that is true. Sometimes other shit is going on in life, and sometimes it's better to take a break, but only you could determine that. And so, like, if you get the chance to fa-chunk or get in there, but if you're like overwhelmed and busy, a lot of times it's better just to say, you know what, clean slate. I'm going to start fresh tomorrow. All of this stuff, what do I really need to do? And whatever I don't need to do or don't feel like doing it, I'm crossing it off my list. Done, delete, gone. Let me make my list something that's manageable. And then you do it like that. Or put something off. You know what? I'll take care of this next month. Or I'll take care of this. Like, we constantly have a million things going on. And like, we do have to space things out.
Most definitely. Diane said, I know this sounds counterintuitive, but lately the scatterbrained approach is working for me. Jumping around and doing different things is a refreshing change from my normal straitjacket schedule.
I love it.
So let's talk about one of the things that didn't work for us long term, which was a very rigid block schedule.
Doesn't work.
It didn't work for us, not long term. We spent about a month dedicated to it before we started slipping. And I'm talking about a block schedule where it's the same every day and everything's planned down to the minute.
Yeah.
And yes, we got stuff done, but I'm not sure we knew who we were at the end of it.
No, it was very robotic, and honestly, it didn't work. Sure, we got into the studio at a certain time, and we did this at a certain time, and everything was kind of like planned out. And, it's funny because the first couple days it was effective, right? Because we had a fire under our butt to do it. But then when it started feeling robotic, my unconscious self started to rebel, and then it became a nightmare.
So I would say that one of the main reasons it didn't work for me was because it left zero room for inspiration.
Yep.
Like, I was just telling myself what to do every minute of the day, including the sleep window, like, off of this sheet. And eventually I was just over it.
And I think that's the problem, is that a lot of systems of organizing your day, and I'm not saying that this won't work for some people, because it will, but a lot of systems of organizing your day, it's almost the same way that the Industrial Revolution does the thing, right? So you get up at this time, you have an alarm, you set this, you do this, you eat at this time, you do this, you exercise, you have some downtime, and then you go to sleep, and everything is very like scheduled, right? And the truth is that as humans, we're not like that. We're much more dynamic. So what we ended up doing recently, after trying a lot of different schedules, is doing what we call a wham schedule, right? And it's called a wham because there's writing, there's art, there's music, and there's media. And those are the things that we do.
And there's also admin, which is another A.
Yeah, so it's WAAMM with an exclamation mark at the end. Like, we're having a wham day, right? So basically, I get up pretty early. So in the mornings, it's easy for me to just sit down and do some writing, right? And basically what I do is I fa-chunk it. So I fa-chunk some writing. So it could be anywhere between half an hour of writing, or it could be 2 hours of writing. And then after I'm done with that, I get into studio, right? So it's like the days are flexible. If I'm having a lazy day, if I'm having I'm going to drag ass day, I could literally get all my wham stuff done in like 2 hours, and then just...
Or less. Like, you could spend 15 minutes writing, 15 minutes in the studio, 15 minutes playing music, 15 minutes doing admin. Boom, you're done in an hour.
And for me, what I realized, that helps me because as long as because for me, a lot of things are out of sight, out of mind. And if I am at least paying attention to it, right? So if my writing day is, okay, let me write this sentence, or let me look at which file I'm organizing my writing in. Right? That's good enough. That's good enough. And that's the thing. It's taking the pressure off of the thing, understanding that just the fact that you are paying attention to it mentally, that counts.
And also, it's really like, so the idea with Wham, I think, was born out of Rafi and I sat down and we said, what are the most important things to us creatively? And we listed those things. And some of those things always get backburnered because other things have a tendency to dominate our thoughts and our time. So it was like, even if we're only dedicating 15 minutes a day to music, that is a hell of a lot more than we were doing in previous years. And Cameron made a good point, too, of like, don't scoff at a 30-minute window to do something. You'd be amazed how much you can do. And I wanted to just point that out because so many times you might really want to or feel inspired to do something, but if you only have 30 minutes to do it, you might talk yourself out of doing that thing. Like, what's the point? What am I going to accomplish in 30 minutes? And I feel like a lot of time gets lost just talking ourselves out of doing something because we don't think we have the time for it.
I think about that because my cousin was a DJ and he had his day job, and in between his day job and then doing some other stuff in the evening, he had an hour, right? There was like this hour in between things that he was at home and like not really doing much of anything. And he was constantly complaining that like, oh, I just don't have enough time to learn this new program and, whatever. And I really want to do it. And he invested the money into it and everything. He's like, I just don't have time. It was just complaining. And then one day I told him, I was like, Alex, you do realize that if you spend an hour, this hour that you're not like doing it, if you spend an hour sitting there playing around with it, figuring out this thing, at the end of the week, that's like 7 hours, right? Even if you do it just Monday through, that's like 5 hours. And then at the end of the month, you spent 20 hours working on it. And instead of that hour being spent complaining, you'll actually be doing something. So, and that's where Fachunking came in, because I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just do this thing, right? Because in those, your brain is going to be like, I don't have enough time. I don't whatever. Like I would need to spend at least 2 hours doing this and whatever. And that's just get it started. Just get it started. You don't need to sit down and finish a project from beginning to end. You could just get it started.
It's like when dentists tell you to just floss one tooth because they know that you'll eat. One of two things will happen. You'll floss one tooth and that tooth is good, and then you'll do another tooth the next day, or chances are you'll floss all your teeth. Or if you have a water pick, then it's really efficient.
Lisa said, I'd rather be whelmed than overwhelmed.
Indeed. Let's talk about another thing which did not work for us, with one exception, which was it was a hybrid of a block schedule, but it was basically like we took a day and the day was dedicated to a singular thing. This also didn't work because what if we didn't want to do that thing on that particular day?
Yep.
With the exception of Media Monday, which we are in right now.
Yeah.
But we've also made sure that we made Media Monday really fun.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Really fun. So Media Monday is usually the day where we're doing like the editing of videos and filming stuff and like having fun. So it's the whole perspective there is that instead of making it work, you're making it playtime. Mm-hmm. And we kind of do the same thing with Wham. That's why it's got to do just like, Wham! What are we doing today? Wham!
Wham!
Because you want to make it fun. You want to make it fun. I feel like most scheduling things are so dry and boring that like it just...
Yeah, like even if you call it Wizard Cape Day, like if you don't wanna, then you don't wanna.
Then you don't wanna.
So, some of the ways that we made Media Day fun, and the reason Media Day is the exception to the rule, is because we live stream. And we live stream on Monday, so it makes sense for us to be looking at media stuff on Mondays. But some of the ways we made it fun is to not be overwhelming. We've tried to be overwhelming with ourselves, where we're like, we're going to record 5 videos today. we're working on one video.
The Rogue fam knows that because they've been on Patreon. A lot of you guys have been on Patreon with us for a while, and you know how much I love to just overwhelm myself. So this year has been an effort in making things simple. Get back to simple.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a list of 15 things to do. Just keep it at 4.
Another way that we made it fun for us was to incorporate more play into what we're doing. So like a lot of you know this, but some of you don't know this. We have a puppet theater that we built so that we could use it for our videos, which is amazing fun.
Yeah.
And so we're really excited about that. So if something is fun but then starts to feel stagnant, then maybe you need to add or remove an element to it to keep it fresh. And I think that's the thing too, is keeping things fresh, not letting them stagnate.
I'm going to say something that I think is really important, and it really captures one of the reasons that we're able to stay pretty consistent doing what we do. Do not ever be afraid to reinvent yourself daily.
Yeah.
Or anything that you're doing. Don't be afraid to reinvent a system, reinvent yourself. Do it every day if you can. If you start feeling stagnant with something, then it means that maybe it's time to reinvent something. Maybe do something, maybe do it in a different twist. Add some fun, especially because a lot of times things start getting stagnant because like you've bled the fun out of it.
Right. Inert Flow said schedules are impossible for us, so many of our tasks are difficult to estimate time required to complete. We'll have a few major tasks each day, and we'll fill in the rest when we can / feel up to it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. There are a lot of things that happen here that I call the drive-by. So it's like literal like drive-by laundry. Like I'm not dedicating myself to this, but since I'm going that way, I'm going to carry this basket down. Or like the drive-by garbage takeout.
Yeah.
And it really is that. It's like, what are the major important things or thing that needs to happen? And then what can get done in drive-by fashion since I'm going that way?
Yeah.
If I feel like it.
Yeah, and your schedule can't be rigid. Like
No.
you can't be rigid with your schedule. Even with the Wham schedule, like it's like, yeah, I'm going to get up and write and I'm going to, get in the studio and do some art, but there are days where maybe the writing takes priority, right? So I spend more time doing that and less time on everything else. Or it's just one of those things where I think about the art, right? And then I schedule a day where I'm going to make art the priority. So like it has to remain flexible, because if not, if you give yourself any kind of rigidity, you are setting yourself up to, I love talking about this because a lot of people, right, they criticize themselves. They feel guilty. Like Bill's saying, if you happen to have ADHD, trying to slam or
shame it
all makes it much worse. And I would say that that's one of the biggest issues with the whole idea behind productivity is that you got to do whatever you can with whatever schedule you give yourself or way of being productive that does not incorporate any kind of shaming or guilting or feeling like you are letting yourself down or someone else down. Because like the moment that you add that element into your schedule, you've shot yourself in the foot.
Nanu said, when working from home, I focus on my workload first thing. If I get done early, I check if anyone needs help. And if there's nothing, I get to art while being by the phone.
Love it.
That way it feels like a reward rather than another task to complete.
I love it.
Let's talk about...
That's the eat the frog.
Yes, it is eat the frog.
Yeah.
And also reward yourself, even if it's a micro reward. So like Wham Day doesn't go straight from one thing into the other. And I don't think Rafi and I even discussed that it was going to be this way, but this is just who we are. So like in between the Wham things, we almost always stop and sit down with each other for like 5 minutes to like relax, have a conversation, like a mini conversation. Sometimes I have this green drink that I make us. So like we'll have our green drink and like have a little break, or then we'll have lunch and have a break or whatever. But it's like these little micro breaks in between. It's not like straight from one thing into the other. And that feels like a reward and a reset time.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about mentioning that, because you can't just go from one thing right to the next to the next to the next.
You can, but like, why?
I mean, if you do, it's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
You gotta like bask in the fact that like you did this thing for 10 minutes, like Wendell says here. Sometimes you could do a hell of a lot in 10 minutes, and that is true. I have sometimes just gone into the studio to work on something and been like, all right, I'm just going to add one thing to it, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes I get in there and I'm like, I'm going to be, I look up and like 4 hours have gone by, and I really don't pre-plan what my time is going to be, because I don't want to add that element of trepidation or whatever it is.
Also, flow state doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like, you can't put bookends on flow state and say it's going to look like this. Diane asked, do you ever look at a work in progress and think, this is taking me so long? My need to get things done pushes me to limit some days, and I pay for it with pain and depression.
Yeah, Diane, I don't do that anymore. I have days where, it's one of the reasons that I have several projects going, right? And I allow permission to those projects to take as long as they need to. Whenever I have given myself a time limit, right? With anything creative. A good example is today, the video that I'm editing we're talking about money. And so it's a very long, in-depth video. And I want to get that done for YouTube tomorrow. So then I'm sitting there and I'm already thinking about this time limit, and I'm running out of time, and there's still some other things that I need to film, and this is not going to work, and all this stuff. And then realize, like, you add a lot of stress to the table when you start living by the illusion of time. If something is taking too much time, not enough time, time rules us. And flow state works in a timeless place, right? So whatever it is that you need to do, that's where chunking comes in. When you're doing the chunking, it might be a matter of sitting down and saying, you know what, I'm going to do these marks, and I'm going to leave it at that. And the nice thing about that is that you do those marks, and you're pretty much done with what you set out to do, and maybe you'll do a little bit extra, and then that's just bonus. And what's important there is that you celebrate that.
Yes, and I want to talk about something that's adjacent to that, which is for a long time I didn't give myself permission to try new things at the bench or at the music desk because of time. Because I know that when I'm doing something I've never done before, I know it's going to take me forever. So when I was ruled by time, I wouldn't give myself permission to experiment and play, because I knew I wasn't going to be traditional productive.
Right.
So now, like right now, I have a piece at the bench that I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, every part of it is new. So it is taking me effing forever. I couldn't even tell you how much time I've spent on it, because I've spent 10 minutes here and 30 minutes there and an hour there. And so pricing, it's going to be a nightmare. But that's another podcast. But I've used chunking also. It's like, okay, solder this thing. Okay, melt some gold here. Okay, put this loop, like just little bits at a time. And also doing other stuff, right? So I finish an order, and then I put 15 minutes in on this thing. And I do, I finish a commission, and then I put 30 minutes in on this thing. And that's been really working for me, not just to get things done, but also to give myself permission to play.
Yeah.
So that play doesn't feel like this overwhelming thing that I can't do, because you are going to take forever when you're in new territory. And if you don't give yourself permission to ever go into new territory with your art, then what? Then you're going to stagnate, and it's all going to feel like a slog.
Yeah, a slog.
A slog.
Valerie says, it helps me mentally to know that I've done something rather than sit there thinking and stressing out about it. Yes, Valerie. And that's the whole point of chunking is just do a thing,
Take care of it.
right? Sometimes when we're doing the Wham Day and I have music, that means sit and practice one song. It's gonna literally take me 5 minutes, and then I did that. I picked up the guitar, right? Instead of stressing out about, oh, I'm not gonna have enough time to do this. Am I gonna do it? Like all that stuff, and then you end up not doing it, which is historically what I've done when it comes to music and practicing on the guitar.
Let's see. Zara said, yeah, mainly rolling with it, plus having a designated day off, which I can choose to take or focus on being creative and productive because it's fun, works for me.
Yeah, our days off are sporadic, and those are the lazy days where it's like we don't have to do anything.
It's
But
intentional.
But if we are going to do something, yeah. So I think it's important to have those kind of days as artists. Like, it's important to have a day where you decide, like, I'm going to do a walk. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to get inspired. I want to go watch a movie. I want to have a movie marathon, and that you give yourself permission on those days to do that. But also, not the guideline of like you're not supposed to do anything.
Yeah,
creative.
we've tried that too,
Yeah.
where we'll have a day off that we scheduled, and then we're like not allowed to work on anything, and then we hate
It's
it. 'Cause
torture. It's
yeah.
torture.
Liv Yummy said, I've been so overwhelmed waiting on someone else's decision. Their yes, no equals very different directions for me. Acted as if, but often felt frozen and lost. Finally, the yes just came.
Oh, good.
Yay, and I'm exhausted.
I am going to tell you right now that I try to avoid situations like that. And when I am waiting on someone, I move on to other things until their answer comes. Now, I am also extremely persistent. So it is not beneath me to send an email every day stating, hi, just checking in to see if you received my email. Hey, just checking in to see if you received my email. Hey, just checking in to see if you received my email.
I would say I'm going to agree with you, and I would say we try to minimize the situations where we're waiting on other people. Being a creative or being a human in general oftentimes requires us to work with other humans.
Yeah.
It's part of life and creativity, so I'm not saying be an island because we get a lot done together, right? But we do try to minimize occurrences of us waiting on others in ways that impact us in a big way. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but it's a really good thing. Like, okay, if you've got one thing, whether it's big or small, where you're collaborating and or waiting on someone's decision, then have 2 or 3 other things that you can focus on so that you're not just because me personally, I hate
waiting
on
too.
people.
But you got to be mentally prepared for that because
Yeah.
like with this mural that I'm designing, right now, chances there's several people that have to make decisions on it. So I know that when I send out an email, I'm not going to get a response right away. And so you gotta be prepared to be working on something else while the response comes in, and not do the thing that unfortunately I've done a lot in the past, which is like check your email every 5 minutes and see if you got a response.
Yeah, that's the worst, right? Is like, just waiting. Zara said that's what I've learned in my many years at 23. Guilting and any kind of shaming, anything at all that focuses on shoulda, coulda, woulda is such a waste of time.
Yep.
And yeah, basically like, right, you're spending time, if you're spending time shaming yourself for not spending your time in the ways that you should, then it's like it's an Ouroboros of shaming and time wasting.
It is. Shroy says, I am trying to build a routine also and not eat frogs because they're too cute.
Hi, Shroy.
Hi, Shroy.
Marty said, carrying a sketchbook so I can pull it out waiting at doctor's office or waiting on phone calls, sketch with attitude of play, exploring not artwork. Flow state is not chronological time. It's present.
Yes. Yes, Marty.
That's great.
That's perfect.
Having some way that you could express yourself creatively anytime you find yourself waiting is a really good idea.
Yep.
I really like it. Diane's like, I think my problem is I'm always doing shit I've never done before because I'm sadistic that way. And all my projects take forever while I'm learning.
I think that's awesome, Diane.
I
That's
think it's
that's
awesome,
that's
too.
a superpower. That's a superpower. And yeah, maybe that they'll take a little bit longer. I love experimenting and playing, but also I know that those projects are going to take a while. And sometimes like the thing about it is that to me, productivity is not how much you create. That's not productivity. Productivity to me is how much time you spend in that flow state, right? How much time you spend, even if it is thinking about something artistic, thinking about how you're going to put yourself out there, thinking about these things in a way that is productive, right? And that's, to me, that's what I mean. Productive means that there's a positive impact, positive effect, and then there's not productive. And not productive is stressing out, worrying about whether or not you're being productive or not.
For sure. I'm going to agree with that wholeheartedly, and I'm going to reiterate it in a woo-woo way. Are you ready for it? You are 24/7, 365 days a year since the moment you took your first breath until you'll take your last breath and even beyond. You are always, at every moment, producing something.
Yep.
And the perspective is, are you producing something that serves you or doesn't serve you? Serves the greater good or doesn't? So are you producing things in your imagination that are going to fuel your inspiration? Or are you producing garbage cloud thoughts that are making you feel like crap and unmotivating you? You are literally always producing
Always.
something.
There's always something being produced, gestated, something.
Yes.
The spark is always happening.
You're also producing air and light and
And
electromagnetic currents. But the question is, are you producing something that benefits you and thereby others? Or are you producing a bunch of self-damaging thinking? And so think about it that way. You're always producing something, make it good.
Yeah.
Even if it's deliberate time off, make it good. Make it all good. Shroy, that's an awesome question. Hit me up on the Discord or in our post podcast. We'll holler about that.
Yep.
Ginny said, I was often in trouble at work because I was a spurt worker. I finished everything, sometimes with time to spare, but bosses and coworkers insisted because I didn't do it without pauses.
That you weren't working. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that, see, the whole nightmare behind productivity and even the word productivity has to do with that whole mentality, right? Because essentially the workforce, or the way that it's set up, is like, okay, so we're going to start paying you per the hour. So how much
can we
squeeze out of you in that hour?
Mm-hmm.
And, if you got time to lean, you got time to clean.
I hate that
if
so
you've
much.
got, it's like, it's this whole mentality. And then we come home and we're like artists, we work for ourselves, and we basically become an a-hole boss to ourselves, and then we become a workahole. Workahole is a brilliant way. It's an a-hole
and workaholic combined.
and workaholic combined, because you yourself are an a-hole to yourself, and you expect the unreasonable,
So don't be a workahole.
Don't be a workahole, kids.
Marty said, it's helped to hear you remind us doing new things raise stress and anxiety. Once it's not new, your stress diminishes.
Yep.
For me, new stuff, approaching new venues, technology, Spanish language, networking.
Venues, like all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. So we've done thousands of shows, but whenever we have a new show that we haven't done, like a new festival, or we're showing, I'm showing books, or I'm showing something at a place that we haven't done, there's all kinds of stress and anxiety that comes up. that we have to deal with because it's a new thing. Unless you're doing the same exact thing, then you've never done it before. If you're using new markers, if you're using a new color, if you're using a new paintbrush, it's all brand new. It's all brand new. It doesn't matter how many times you've done something before. If you're adding an element to it, it's brand new. And you got to be prepared because it will kind of stress you out. And you're going to maybe in some cases want to put it off and not do it.
Unless you're trying to commit knowledge to long-term memory by like scaring the shit out of yourself 24/7 or like berating. There's better ways to commit things to long-term memory than to stress yourself out.
Yeah.
Is the point.
Hi, Cass.
Hi, Cass. Cass is like, I take a non-refundable deposit now on any project.
Yes.
And so if somebody cancels, I use the time to tattoo myself. Lol.
Yep.
That's good. That's real good.
Yep. Everybody out there, I want to say that right now. If you are taking any kind of commission or anything like that, you take the deposit. Always. Don't do the thing where you talk because you're trying to avoid talking about money, and so you avoid taking it. No, always do a deposit. Always.
Shan said, wait, can you scroll? Are you able to scroll just a little? There we go. I have to learn to play and experiment more. I'm still trying to break out of my current process, trying to stop drawing seagulls. That's very specific and makes me smile.
It is.
But
I feel
I get it.
I feel like that should be a band name.
Trying to stop drawing seagulls?
Yeah.
Or stop drawing seagulls.
Stop drawing seagulls.
But also, wait, I might have skipped. I tried to sketch the other day and started to draw a girl with flowy hair, and then I deleted it. I need to do something different. But also, I was tired, about to sleep. Mostly did because haven't, so old habits. Maybe should wait till I have time. It can be really hard to give yourself permission to play when it's been your habit not to.
Yeah.
And so it does happen a little bit at a time.
Yeah,
usually.
Shan, one of the things you'll have to remember is that if you have a habit gets formed pretty much right away. The first time you do it, it becomes a habit. The second time you do it, it becomes a more solidified habit. The third time you do it, then it becomes more like ritualistic habit. And whenever you're going to break free of that and start a new habit, it literally is like pushing through molasses, and you have to give yourself permission to be able to do that. And that's why, what you did where you got something started and maybe, you deleted it or whatever, but give yourself props for starting it. Don't use these things against yourself because there's no point. There's no point.
Yeah, like if you took a step in a direction, we should be celebrating that. But instead we're like, oh, it was only a baby step. But it's like, that's a reason to celebrate for sure.
Diane said, work a hole.
I'm stealing that. Zara said, when my honey complains about how much he's worked, I tell him he has a terrible boss. He's retired. Hi, Ginger Snaps. Ginny said it would really make me mad because I was the one who was always finished and ready for a new task tomorrow.
Right?
Yeah, we do get they try to anyway. Some of us are harder to program than others.
Yeah,
but,
they do try to program you.
Yeah, most definitely. Shan's like, I'll be okay after Wednesday and all this stress won't matter. So why am I running through it all through my mind now? That's a great question.
That's something that we talked about last week where it's like, you've got anxiety. Anxiety is thinking about the future. Mm-hmm. You gotta, and in those moments, you take a deep breath and bring yourself here right now.
Because none of it's actually happening.
Because none of it's happening. None of it's happening here right now. Why am I thinking about a moment in time that I'm not in, that I know for a fact that when I am there, I will take care of things just fine. I trust that future version of myself to be able to take care of business.
Or conversely, as I'm rereading your comment, things are really, really stressful for you right now, and you're trying to think about what you're going to do when you get through the stress. So you're trying to future project fun times during a time where there's heightened stress. Isn't that interesting? That's two sides of the same coin. So I think what you're saying is like, just do the things right now and then
get it over with. chunk the shit out of those things,
Yeah.
get them out of there. There are times, Shan, there are plenty of times where I am either working on something or something, and it is, let me chunk this so I get this behind me. And that's, and so then there's an extra fire under my butt because I am projecting in the future what it's going to look like when this is no longer on my plate.
But also, just as a public service announcement, watch yourself because we can get addicted to stress and we can create stressful environments out of thin air if we choose to. And sometimes I know from personal experience, one stressful thing will end and I will create another or manifest another that seems to come out of the woodwork, like to take its place because I've become accustomed to living in that state.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm not saying all stress comes from that, but I had to take a good long look and say like, oh, am I accustomed to high functioning in stressful environments? And am I creating some of that for myself where I don't need to, simply because it's an easy motivator? It's an easy thing to reach for, even though it sucks and does a lot of damage.
Something that we found out lately that I think will be a big, and I'll just talk this based on what you said, is that, so obviously the body releases stress hormones, right? And the body, here's the irony of that, is that you can actually get addicted to those stress hormones. So when you're not feeling stressed, a lot of times when you get that negative chatter in your head, or you project a problem or think of something or whatever, that might actually be your body trying to activate those stress hormones.
It's
because
sneaky.
it's addicted to those stress hormones. So that's just something that for me, I was like, holy shit, that's so cool. Because now I could be aware that if I have a thought come out of the blue, that I don't have to take that thought seriously. That's just, I got to wean my body off of this stress stuff that it's dealing with.
Yeah, and it can really come in like a sleeper missile.
Yeah.
I had a week or so ago, I was having a really good, like I was feeling great. But I'm coming out of a time that I would consider stressful. Anyway, I was feeling great. And then a thought popped into my mind that was like an atomic bomb of stress. And I was so mad because it was so like out of left field. And we talked about that. And I was like, oh, I'm literally like, my body is literally like a drug addict right now. And that was like the scariest thing it could come up with to jolt me back into stress. And knowing that, then after that initial knee-jerk stress response, which is, something to work on over time, then I know, oh, okay, well, I see it for what it is, and I don't need to be emotionally caught up in it.
Yeah.
Inert Flow said the next concert is going to be a handful for me. I've been recording, but we're adding cameras, and I'm going to run the merch table of my custom merch with a new radical hairstyle.
Yes.
Fun.
That's awesome. Well, I think at the end of the day, I'm going to make my thing on productivity here. At the end of the day, I think it's important for us to determine what it means to be productive to us and throw away excuse me, and throw away whatever idea you might have in your brain of what it means to be productive. If you've ever had a job, if you've ever been in school, if you've ever had parents, chances are you have a really whack idea of what it means to be productive, because the way that people teach us to be productive is not healthy at all. So reinvent that word for yourself. Tell yourself what it means to be productive, and make that happen. And productive doesn't mean that you kill yourself doing something. Productive means that you enjoy the process.
And chew on this as we end. You could be doing the right thing, but if you're feeling awful about it, then are you really producing something good?
Yep.
Right?
That's a great question.
So knowing that you're always producing something every moment, make it good. That's just my reminder to you.
Yeah. And Wendell says, many of us are addicted to stress, chaos, and drama. We create it for ourselves, and there are sometimes nothing real about
Right.
nothing real about it. Yeah.
Right.
All right, so I think that that's a good place to end. And thank you so much to the Rogue Artist family for being here. I love having these conversations with you guys.
They're awesome, you guys.
And thank you all that's listening to this. And hey, if you like this podcast and you want to listen to us more, we try to do one of these once a week. So whatever platform you're on, go ahead and subscribe, follow, whatever it is that you got to do in order to get an update whenever we come on. And yeah, and that's it. You want to say goodbye, Clee?
Good day.
Adios.